You think a great white shark is the ocean's final boss. You think a lion is the scariest thing that ever stalked the land. You think nothing could fly bigger than a small plane. You're wrong. Not a little wrong, completely wrong. For most of Earth's history, the biggest, strongest, most terrifying animals weren't the ones we know today. They were things so large, so alien, that if one walked past you right now, your brain wouldn't even know how to process what it was looking at. Today, I'm showing you 8 prehistoric monsters that make modern predators look like house pets. Some of these are so strange that scientists are still arguing about how they were even physically possible. Hit subscribe now, because number 1 is a creature science has debated for over a century and still hasn't fully solved. Number 8. Titanoboa. Forget every snake movie you've ever seen. Titanoboa was real, and it was worse. It lived in the swamps of Colombia 60 million years ago, right after the asteroid wiped out the dinosaurs, when the world was hotter and jungles ruled everywhere. It grew up to 42 feet long and weighed over 2,500 pounds. That's longer than a city bus and heavier than a grand piano. Here's the part that should bother you. Snakes this size can only exist if the planet itself is hot enough to support them. Titanoboa needed average temperatures higher than anywhere on Earth today, which means somewhere, in some future version of this planet, the conditions that built this thing could exist again. It didn't need venom, it didn't need speed. It simply wrapped around anything unlucky enough to get close, and physics did the rest. A modern anaconda can suffocate a full-grown deer in under a minute. Titanoboa was 6 times heavier. Number 7. Arthropleura. If you're afraid of bugs, skip ahead. I'm serious. 300 million years ago, Earth's atmosphere had far more oxygen than it does now, and that changed everything about how big insects and arthropods could grow. Enter Arthropleura, a millipede 8.5 feet long, the largest land invertebrate that has ever existed on this planet. Picture a millipede as long as a car, armored in overlapping plates, moving across the forest floor towards you. It probably wasn't hunter. Most evidence points to it eating plants and decaying matter, but probably harmless doesn't make it less horrifying to imagine crawling over your foot. Scientists only figured out its true size in 2021 after a fossil the size of a car door was found buried in a British cliff face, which raises an uncomfortable question. What else that size is still buried out there, waiting to be found? Number 6. Andrewsarchus. Here's the unsettling part about Andrewsarchus. We've never found its full body, not once. Everything we know comes from a single skull discovered in Mongolia in 1923. A skull 3 feet long, bigger than the skull of any land predator that has ever lived, including every big cat and every bear. Based on that skull alone, scientists estimate this creature stood as tall as a horse and weighed over a ton. It lived 45 million years ago and is believed to be an early relative of whales, which sounds almost peaceful until you remember its jaw was built to crush bone. We are talking about the largest skulled land predator in Earth's history, and we still don't have the rest of its skeleton. Somewhere in the Mongolian desert, the remaining 90% of this animal is still in the ground. Number 5. Jaekelopterus. Before there were fish with jaws, before there were land animals at all, the oceans belonged to something that looked like a nightmare crossed with a lobster. Jaekelopterus was a sea scorpion, 8.5 feet long, making it the largest arthropod predator that has ever existed on this planet. It lived 390 million years ago, patrolling ancient rivers and shallow seas with claws built to grab and shred. There were no fish armored enough to stop it. There were no predators big enough to challenge it. For millions of years, it simply had no equal. Think about that the next time you feel a small crab brush your foot in shallow water. Its ancestor used to be the apex predator of the entire planet. Number 4. Titanis, the terror bird. Not every monster in this list swam or crawled. Some of them ran. On two legs, faster than you could sprint, with a beak built like an axe. Titanis wallery stood 8 feet tall, weighed around 300 pounds, and could not fly because it didn't need to. It ran down prey across North America roughly 2 million years ago, using a hooked, hatchet-shaped beak to strike downward with enough force to break bone in a single hit. Modern ostriches can outrun a racehorse. Titanis was built the same way, except armed. If you saw this thing on the horizon running towards you, outrunning it was not an option. Number 3. Basilosaurus. Its name literally means king lizard. Scientists who first found its bones in the 1830s thought it was a giant sea reptile. They were wrong. It was one of the earliest whales that ever existed, and it hunted like nothing alive today. Basilosaurus grew up to 60 feet long, with a long, almost eel-like body built for speed through open water 40 million years ago. Fossil evidence shows something disturbing: preserved stomach contents containing the remains of baby whales from a smaller species. This wasn't a filter feeder. This was a whale that hunted other whales, including their young. The modern orca hunts in coordinated pods and still avoids full-grown adult prey when it can. Basilosaurus didn't have to avoid anything. Number 2. Dunkleosteus. Before sharks, before bony fish dominated the oceans, there was an armored fish with no teeth at all, and it didn't need them. Dunkleosteus grew up to 20 feet long, its head and thorax covered in bony armor plates up to 2 inches thick. Instead of teeth, its jaw had razor-sharp bony blades that sharpened themselves as each bite slid against each other. Scientists calculated its bite force at roughly 8,000 pounds per square inch at the tip of its jaw, among the strongest bites of any fish living or extinct, rivaling the force of some of the largest predators to ever exist. It could bite clean through the armor of other armored fish. Nothing in the ocean 380 million years ago was safe, including things that were already built like tanks. Number 1. Helicoprion. This is where it gets genuinely strange, because this isn't a what-if-it's-still-alive story. This is a we still don't fully understand how this animal's body worked story, and that's somehow worse. Helicoprion lived 270 million years ago, and for over a century, all scientists had were fossils of something impossible. A perfect spiral of teeth, like a circular saw blade with no clear skull attached to explain its position. Early reconstructions put the tooth spiral on its tail, on its nose, curled outward from its mouth like a party favor. Nobody could agree because nobody had ever seen anything like it. It wasn't until CT scans in 2013, using fossils that had sat in a museum drawer for decades, that scientists finally confirmed the truth. The spiral sat inside the lower jaw, a built-in conveyor belt of teeth that never stopped growing, curling backward into the throat as new teeth pushed in from the front. It may have grown over 20 feet long, closer in size to a great white shark, using that spinning tooth whorl to slice through soft-bodied prey like squid. Here's the part that should stick with you. Helicoprion's closest living relatives are chimeras, strange deep-sea ghost sharks that still swim in the ocean's darkest depths today, barely changed in appearance for hundreds of millions of years. We solved the mystery of what Helicoprion looked like 12 years ago, which means somewhere in those same depths, something else from that era could still be swimming around, unidentified, simply because no one has looked closely enough yet. We're short on ocean. We're short on time to look. Which of these 8 disturbed you the most? Tell me in the comments, and subscribe if you want the next one before anyone else does.